Hello, everyone. Welcome to NonSequitur. I'm Kyle Curtis, joined always by Steve McRae and David Fulton in the back. David, thanks as always for coming on to help. And Steve, good to see that you still exist today.
I'm very happy to know that I still exist.
I'm very happy that you do as well.
Existential crisis is averted.
Good.
No more angst. I exist.
And then joining us are two special guests. One you recognize very well. He comes on quite often. He was a part of the questions thing that we did. What was that? That wasn't this month. Was that this Monday?
Yeah.
It seems like forever ago. We just couldn't get enough of him. So he's back on. Godless Engineer is with us. And then joining us for the first time, we have allegedly Dave. Dave, thank you for coming on. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Well, I'm glad I exist too.
Well, to give you kind of a reason that we say that is there are people on here that are convinced that Steve does not exist.
No, that's not the case. They're convinced that I exist, but they don't believe that I exist.
Okay, well, if that makes sense, okay.
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
I guess to them it does.
It doesn't make sense at all. But anyways, it's good to see that all three of you exist. All four of you. Sorry, David. That all four of you exist. Before we get into tonight, I'm just going to go over the next two things that we have coming up. Tomorrow we have Dr. Cy Gart and Dr. R.M. Huffman coming back on. Both are Christians. They both believe, well, they both have the same field. They're both doctors, right? So that means that they both go through an extensive amount of education and that sort of thing. Where they differ is that one follows the path of evolution, the other follows the creation path. So,
well, they're different, yeah, but one's a PhD, one's an MD, so they're not quite.
Yeah, I mean, I should have said the doctor part is the same. Their actual fields aren't the same, but my ultimate point is that they both went through extensive, higher education to get their respected degrees. So it's interesting to see how they can come at such stark different conclusions in the same faith. I think that's what the interesting aspect of it. And then Dr. Stephen D. Matei will be back with us on Saturday at 8 o'clock. And then tomorrow's event, I didn't say before, that's at 7. So I'm going to leave it there for right now. And I'm going to ask Dave, if you will, since people don't, many of them, this will be the first time that they're meeting you with us. I'm going to let you go ahead and kind of introduce yourself, tell people who you are and, the issues that you get behind. And we're going to dive into some of those today. And then, Godless Engineer, I'll let you recap for anybody that don't know who you are already. So, David, over to you.
Okay. Well, I'm known as allegedly Dave. I've been researching topics of the truth for about 15 years now. I started at 9/11 because I was at 9/11. And like 4 years on from then, I started to realize there was something fishy about it. It just so happened to coincide with my midlife crisis. And so I started pulling apart the threads of my life and also the threads of the world, and found that every time I pulled something, it fell apart, and there was a kind of hidden layer underneath it. So I went through, the government conspiracy and, the monetary fraud and the free man on land, or I think you said you call them sovereign citizens over there.
Right, we do.
Yeah, that's kind of, to me, that sounds like a bit of an oxymoron, but I went through that, and then went through finding out the whole healthcare system was a fraud, and I've literally lost count of all the things I've looked at, but got to the Flat Earth, thinking that was the biggest lie of all. In fact, that was the title of my first video on the subject. Mm-hmm. But halfway through researching now, I found there's an even bigger lie underneath that, and that turned out to be human history. And right now, I'm actually researching languages, which is another totally fascinating subject.
I'm interested to hear about what that bigger lie is, because I'm probably not familiar with it. So we'll get into that, but I definitely do want to know what that bigger lie is. Okay, Godless Engineer.
Hi, I'm Godless Engineer. I run a channel here on YouTube called Godless Engineer. I also have a Facebook page and Twitter of the same name. So, I debunk anti-science and anti-atheist things. I also advocate for science, as well as argue against religious dogmatism and religious arguments, I guess. And so tonight's going to be a fun discussion. I can't wait for it.
Good. Okay. Let's. I kind of wanted. I said it before the show started. I kind of wanted to start at the free men on the land thing, because I think that will be the shortest hit topic, and we're going to focus mainly on the flat Earth. But just because I'm interested in how that works and what all that entails, and we actually are having a debate on this very thing with another gentleman who is a sovereign citizen. He'll be coming in a couple of weeks to do that. But just to kind of give everybody a clue in as to what free men on the land is, can you kind of give a brief summary of what positions that you hold and what that entails?
Right. Well, free man on land basically is somebody who's discovered the deception behind the legal system. And the legal system masquerading as the law, the system of law. There are two different things altogether. The law and the legal system. One is basically it just is. We know what the law is. It's written on our hearts anyway. The other is man-made, and it's just a system of statutes that you have to essentially agree to first, and they usually use word play and trickery to get you to agree to it before without knowing it.
Okay. Go ahead, Godless.
Well, I heard you say that the law is written on all of our hearts. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, where do you get that from? Like, do you get it from a religious place, or like, how do you know this?
Well, you know that it's wrong to kill somebody, don't you?
Not necessarily.
I would say that is not generally an intuition that a lot of people have. I think that I would probably say that any general person that you find today, they'd probably tell you that it's wrong, but there are instances where like people like sociopaths and psychopaths. How do you explain those?
Humans know it's wrong. Psychopaths obviously don't know it's wrong.
Okay, so psychopaths are different than humans. They're not
pretty
human.
Pretty much.
Okay, if they're not human, then what are they?
Okay, that goes into the bigger lie underneath the flat Earth.
So we're going to get to that.
Yeah. So
are we going into reptilian territory?
Human.
Yeah,
it's not reptilian. No.
Oh, damn it.
Okay.
So
that would have been
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, the only humans have this certain moral code written on their hearts. But where do you how do you know what this moral code is? Because a lot of different people have different ideas as to what is moral and what is not, what is right, what is wrong.
Essentially, it comes down to the 10 Commandments.
Okay, so it's religious in nature.
No, because the 10 Commandments aren't part of a religion. They're part of a way of life. Yeah.
Okay. Where do you find the 10 Commandments?
Before we go on with that, let me ask this, because we're all on the same kind of playing field. Are you religious? Like, do you hold to any kind of religion or not? Just kind of so that way we know where your angle's coming from and the questions that we need to kind of go with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it's a different thing when people bring religion into it, it sets up the questions different. So do you come from a religious place or not?
Absolutely not. I'm not religious in any shape or form. However, I was an atheist for 40 years. I do know that there is a creator, and I am what would be called a Hebrew Israelite.
Okay.
All right.
So he's a theist, but he's non-religious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Johnny, did you want to go ask anything else with that, or?
Well, yeah, I guess I wasn't sure how he could actually say that the Ten Commandments are not religious when they are contained within a religious book and they're pushed by a religion and they only seem to matter within the religious context.
No, because the Old Testament or Book of Remembrance is not a religious book. It is a book of law, history, and guidance for a particular people. Now, that book has been taken by religions, and they've used that as the base, and they've added their new books, such as the New Testament, the Quran, the Book of Mormon, whatever, and they've placed their own book on top of it and created a religion around it. It isn't a religious book in nature.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So with being a free man on the land, over here we run into instances where you have people who are driving and they may have not had their license, or they've been revoked, or whatever reason they're driving without a license. Now, how does that play out with a free man on the land? Because I think that was the most fascinating thing for me in terms of your videos, and this will be the kind of last question that I have just for this section. But I think it's interesting how that played out. And can you also tell us what you remember in the beginning of the video? You handed the officer some folded up papers. Like, what was that you handed to him?
Okay. What I handed to the police officer was a notice of service and a bunch of notices telling the officer of my lawful status, which is that I'd contacted the relevant authorities, basically apprising them of what I was doing, and asking them to rebut the understandings that I had. Okay, so I understood that driving is actually a commercial activity, and that if I jump into my own private conveyance and use it privately, I'm not actually driving. I'm traveling. Yeah. There is a difference between driving and traveling that most people aren't aware of. So I sent those notices out, waiting for a rebuttal. I received none. So according to a maxim of law, he who is silent consents. So by their silence, it's called tacit consent. So, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to ask, when you said earlier the appropriate authorities, that you notified the appropriate authorities, who are the like if it's not the police or whoever backs the law there, who are the appropriate authorities that can give that kind of consent?
Well, it was the police, I can't remember the word from the state attorney. I can't remember we've got a word for that over here, but I can't think of it. But the DVLA, which is the equivalent of the DMV over there, the parties that are concerned, with this, that's all.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I was wanting to put this whole idea in a different context. So, like, let's say you walk into a room and there's a young girl there and you're like, hey, I'm going to fuck you. And she does not respond to you at all. She just ignores you. Is that tacit consent?
No, that's a very contrived argument, though, isn't it, really?
How is it contrived? I feel like you're saying that those who remain silent are that's that's consenting and that's tacit consent. It's two similar situations.
We're talking about a public servant, yeah, whose job is to respond to the people. They work for the people, supposedly. That's the idea. Yeah, that's who public servants are. Yeah, if a public servant who is supposed to be managing the roads for us, yeah, that's their job, right? We have the right to ask them, and we have the right to give our understandings of what's going on, and get answers from them. That's the way it's supposed to work. It doesn't work like that in reality.
Okay, but if I write the president about being able to go out and murder somebody, I mean, or commit any other kind of crime, or take over the country,
you can't ask to commit a crime.
It seems to me like crime is a very loose term here.
I think what Dave's trying to say is that
crime would apply. Loose term.
Well, I mean, if he doesn't have a license to drive on the road and he doesn't have any way of legally driving on the road, he basically is riding them to commit a crime.
How can you have a license to commit a crime?
No. I'm not saying you get a license to commit a crime. I'm saying that if you don't have a license to drive on the road or whatever you have to do over there where you live to be able to drive on the road, then you are essentially riding them, asking and telling them, "Hey, I'm going to commit this crime."
So, if driving without a license is a crime, how can you have a license to commit a crime?
I don't. I mean, driving without a license is a crime, so I don't.
That's a non sequitur, by the way.
No, come on. Think about it.
A non sequitur on the non sequitur.
If you don't have a license, yeah, is to perform an act, yeah, and performing that act is a crime, yeah.
It's a crime to go hunting without a license, but if you have a license, you can go hunting.
No, hang on. The act of hunting is not criminal in itself.
Yes, yeah? It is in many places.
Hang on. Yeah, many places, yeah, but the act of hunting is not a crime. If you go to one state, it's not a crime there. If you go to another, now it's a crime. Yeah, because it's
a crime in somebody every state, I can guarantee.
Yeah, I think pretty much every state poaching.
He's saying the act itself, like if whether it's outside of the legal system, if you wanted to go squirrel hunting, that wouldn't be
well, the legal system is what proposes the laws, though.
I know that.
The legalist system.
Right,
I know that,
right,
but I don't want to get caught into a definitions match for what we're talking about here, because it's going to spread on and go further. Sure. But he's just saying an action that is outside of the law, like hunting. If you wanted to go hunting, it's only illegal because the law says it's legal. Because the law says it. Somebody said somewhere that it's illegal. Yeah, right. It's nothing unlawful about it.
No, look, there are important reasons for the regulation of it, though.
Sure.
Because
absolutely.
Because I mean, if you just allow people to go hunting, they could completely wipe out an entire population.
Of course.
Sometimes they actually want people to go out and hunt because of an overpopulated animal or something like that. Like I think that there was one regulation that was implemented. I can't remember where. It might have been Texas or something concerning deer. And it allowed the deer population to explode, and so they had to regulate it. Like deer, like hunting in general, has to be regulated so that whole species are not wiped out, but also to where the population's kept in check.
I think what we're doing here is we're kind of mixing right and wrong and legal or illegal. Like he's saying that the act of driving itself is not a right or wrong. Almost like moral issue. Like if you were just driving, it's not something that you would have to.
But he's not saying it's morally right or wrong. He's saying it's either legal or not legal.
Not getting a chance to say anything really, but
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, you have a natural right to travel in any manner that you see fit. It's a natural right, and you know what? This is in America especially. It's something that shouldn't even be an issue because the Supreme Court has ruled on it several times that that traveling is a natural right, and there should be nothing that abrogates that natural right.
Okay, what is natural about getting into a car that was made at a manufacturer lined with like faux leather and turn on an engine that was used that is run off of petroleum, which is which is used to you get what I'm saying? Like there's nothing natural about getting in a car. It's not like I can go out to the forest. Well, hold on. It's not like I can go out to the forest and there's a car growing on a tree and I can't just pluck that car out of the tree, jump in it, and ride my way down to Disneyland. I mean,
you have a natural right to travel in any manner that you see fit, to go from one place to another. That is a natural right. If I came up with a new device that allowed me to float 1 foot above the ground and move from one place to another, I've got that natural right to use that in any way I see fit, to move from one place to another. Hang on. I've got, if I come up with this device and I start moving around from one place, floating around and going from one place to another without harming anybody, that's my natural right to use that. Somebody will come along and decide to regulate that and say, right, I'm deciding there's a law now that says you must have a license and you must pay this and that and the other. That's what I'm saying is a difference.
Okay. So on that note, I will say that no, you can't guarantee that nobody's going to get hurt. And that is the purpose of the regulations that we impose. You can't guarantee with whatever kind of, golf cart helicopter that you can come up with that you're not going to crash it into a school bus full of children. I mean, you cannot guarantee that you're not going to hurt people.
Against accidents anyway. And that's
not what he's saying, though.
Wouldn't it be worse though if it was not regulated and you would have people of any age or under any type of influence, whether it be drugs, alcohol, or whatever, that could just decide to drive, and that would be kind of chaotic and unsafe, right?
Yeah, public safety has to take precedence there.
So,
okay, you've got these. You've got these things called hoverboards right now, just little things that you stand on and you go like at walking pace, and don't harm anybody. Can't really, it's like exactly the same as walking, but you're not using your own energy. Same thing. But that's what I'm trying to say.
Well, cars are a lot bigger and go a lot fast. If it's something.
Matter. A horse is big.
Well, what about aircraft? Should you be able to fly your own aircraft in any airspace you want, anywhere you want?
Is that what you're going to do? Just come up with,
Well, it's an analogy. I mean, if it applies to one for the roads, why would it not equally apply for airspace?
Well,
I'm just saying, he said travel. I mean, that's
it's traveling. I'm traveling in the air.
Okay, well, fundamentally, yes, you should be able to travel by air, any way you see fit.
You don't want me flying a plane, trust me.
I don't want you flying.
I do it on simulator, and it's bad. So
I don't want you flying a plane either.
Then that would be you irresponsible, then, wouldn't it?
No, I'm just incompetent flying aircraft. But I recognize that.
But it'd be you irresponsible getting in an aircraft and flying if you don't think you could.
But there are irresponsible people that drive that shouldn't be driving. So.
And
I think this is a good
right
spot
now
to flip over to the.
And right now they do. Yeah.
Let's go ahead and flip over to what we're here about. So that I was just kind of curious where your thoughts were on that. And John, I'm going to let you ask kind of the questions that you usually do on your channel for evidence, and kind of let you guys have a discussion. Steve and I are going to fall back and let it just be you two having a conversation. Just both of you try not to talk over each other so that everybody can hear what you're saying. And if we get off topic or whatever, Steve and I will step in and ask some questions. But we're going to kind of let you guys have a back and forth now.
Okay. All right. So I'm just kind of curious, like, what has convinced you that the Earth is flat in particular?
Lack of curvature, the gyroscope, just me going out and performing experiments myself.
Okay. what kind of experiments have you performed yourself?
Okay, I went to Lake Balaton in Hungary and performed a laser test across the lake, where we shot a laser just above the surface. I think we got something like, don't quote me, this was 2 years ago. I think we got 12 kilometers and found that the laser was exactly the same height above the water than that it started at. So that kind of disproved an experiment that Stephen Hawking chaired on television, doing the same thing and getting the results that proves the Earth is curved. And we took lots of photographs, and the photographs were GPS verified, so we had position points, and we had all the data proves that the Earth is flat.
Okay.
I also went to the Bonneville Salt Flats. Did some similar experiments there. Every time I fly anywhere, I speak to the pilots and ask them about their gyroscopic controls, the attitude indicator, the artificial horizon. I get lots and lots of different answers there.
Okay. I mean, on the laser experiment across the lake, did you account for atmospheric refraction at the surface of the lake that causes the light or any electromagnetic waves to bend over the curve?
Actually, the very first test we did, we found the opposite, actually. We found that the laser went parallel to the surface of the water, and then suddenly at the end, pretty much the end part of it curved upwards. I mean, very sharply. It wasn't that it bounced off the water or anything. It literally curved upwards, which doesn't follow your theory either.
Okay, so I'm kind of curious as to why you say that it sharply curved upwards rather than instead of drawing a straight line from the end of your laser pointer to where it actually landed. Why do you go the route of, it's perfectly parallel and then it curves upwards? Because
that's the photographic evidence we have, and the photographs are very clear. And that was the experience that we had when we were on the lake in a boat chasing the beam. Yeah, we suddenly saw this beam very suddenly start going upwards.
Okay, and it couldn't have dawned on you that maybe you were,
Nope.
your elevation was changing or anything like that. Like,
it doesn't. The elevation doesn't change suddenly. It's not like we're not on a step world, are we? No.
Okay, go ahead.
If we're on a curved surface, the change would be gradual. No, this was sudden. Yeah, we even thought the laser must be striking the water or something, but it wasn't.
Okay. I not having the actual evidence right here in front of me to see, I can't really make a judgment on where you might have went wrong or anything like that. So,
right. Well, I will say that that was the first test where we had the laser literally a few inches above the water. It's Lake Balaton is only a meter deep, so it doesn't have waves, but the humidity is very high at the surface. We repeated the experiment with the laser maybe 2 foot above the water, and we didn't get the same effect.
Do you have a link to that data? People are asking.
Yes, if you put in Lake Balaton laser experiment into YouTube, you'll find it.
Okay. And later on, we'll link to that too for people who are watching this later.
And also that there's in the description there's a link to a spreadsheet with all the data.
Just out of curiosity, do you remember the distance off the top of your head? How many miles it was?
I believe it's 12 kilometers, but you know.
12 kilometers?
Yes.
What's the kilometer?
1,000 meters.
Kidding.
We're Americans. We don't do that metric stuff.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, John.
Okay, so how do you explain? You mentioned GPS a minute ago. How do you explain the GPS situation if we're not oblate spheroid?
What would an oblate spheroid have to do with GPS?
Well, GPS global positioning satellites. They're satellites that are orbiting the Earth. There's a giant network of them. You have to have at least 3 satellites in the air at any one time in order to pinpoint your position.
Could you tell me how that worked before there were ever satellites? Because before GPS, there were 2 systems. One was called LORAN. One was called DECA. They were radio triangulation systems that were used in World War II. So they didn't have satellites back then. How did they work?
Well, I mean, I don't know about those particular things, but I mean, GPS.
No, you don't, because you haven't. No, you don't.
Hey, hold on. So. I try not to interrupt you. Please don't interrupt me. Okay. All right. So, GPS satellites work off the basic idea of trilateralation. I know I probably fucked that up, but so basically, if you have 3 landmarks or 3 points where you know their locations and you know how far you are from each location, then you can pinpoint where you are on a map. Explorers and everything have been doing this for a while now. It's a basic technique, and it's what GPS uses. And I'm guessing that the systems that you also mentioned were a network of similar systems. I'm sure that it probably wasn't as precise as GPS units, but yeah, I would imagine that would be the same principle that they work off of.
Okay, they were precise because they were military. Okay, just like GPS is supposedly military. Yeah, same thing. Well, yeah. The same thing. Yeah. The only difference is that the DECA or LORAN system has just been updated with a computer interface. That's all. It's radio triangulation, exactly the same way that you can flip open your phone and look on Google Maps and find out exactly where you are, because it's using a similar process with the 3 nearest radio towers.
Okay. What evidence do you have that suggests that the GPS satellites don't actually exist?
Because they're not necessary to exist. Yeah, the radio towers do exactly the same thing. If you want evidence that satellites don't exist, well, you can lie down on your back in a field at midnight and supposedly see these satellite things flying overhead. Yeah, have you seen them?
Yes. Well, I mean, I haven't done that particular thing. Apparently, Steve has seen them, though.
Right. Well, I don't have the thing with me, but I drew up a picture of Earth to scale, and I drew 2 concentric circles, coinciding with 99 miles and 1,200 miles. Okay, to show, and it's very when you see the scale of the Earth, it's very, very close to the surface. Both circles, but when you realize that when half the Earth is in shadow, okay, you would not see those satellites because they would be in shadow. Yeah, they're too. I'd have to show you the image, but literally when you're lying on your back at midnight, yes. The sun is the other side of the planet from you. Yeah. So when you're looking at the satellites going overhead, they literally go from one horizon to the next. Yeah. you shouldn't see them. Satellites don't have lights on them. And, if you're trying to see something that is the size of a car, or between a car and a school bus, which is between 99 and 1,200 miles away, there's no way you should be able to see them.
Okay, so you're saying that they are not made of like reflective material at all or anything?
Where are they getting the light to reflect from?
Well, I mean, the sun is pretty big and exists. Right?
Yes, it's pretty big, but so's the Earth, and it's in between the satellite and the sun.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you're gonna deny the fact that the sun will reflect off of shiny material, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, no, I'm not denying that. I'm saying that it won't reflect if there's something big in the way that's stopping the light getting there.
Well, I mean, you realize that I can't remember what the altitude of the GPS satellites are, but I mean, you realize that they're pretty high up there, and I mean, you
low Earth orbit.
Low Earth orbit could be anywhere from 99 miles to
1,200.
Right.
1,200 miles.
David, are you saying that there are people who are lying back on their back and can see that?
Yes, go out and.
So what are they seeing then?
I don't know. I can't tell you, but they're not satellites.
Okay.
Okay. How do you explain areas of the Earth where there are no radio towers, but you can get a GPS signal?
Well, funny enough, there's a place that there aren't any GPS towers. There's no way to find them, and funny enough, you don't get GPS signals. That's over in the southern hemisphere, over the water. Okay.
Over the water in the southern hemisphere. I mean, have you traveled in the
but you can go online to any plane tracker, and you'll find all the planes in the northern hemisphere, being tracked. But you start tracking a plane taking off in the southern hemisphere, it will take off, you'll see it being tracked, and it will go for about an hour and then disappear and reappear an hour before landing. It's not been. There's no GPS. No, you go and have a look. Check yourself.
Yeah, like you said, southern hemisphere. Do you know what a hemisphere is?
Yes, I know, and it's a linguistic term, and I just used it for your benefit.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So what would be I have to clarify, if it's not in the southern hemisphere, where is it on the flat Earth then?
The other side of the equator from the north.
Okay, so the outer ring. Would that be better? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes, let's call it the outer ring then.
I was getting ready to ask that actually, John. Before you, I was getting ready to ask him that very question. Do you think that the Arctic Circle or the Antarctica is the ring around the edge of the Earth? Is that safe to say?
Yes, indeed. And
it
just so happens to be my conception or my idea, which is just speculation, that there is more land beyond the what they call Antarctica, and beyond that is the firmament, the dome.
All right. So what's the dome made of?
I don't know. I've never been there.
Okay. But I mean, you've obviously been able to track like airplanes as they go across the outer ring ocean. But I'm kind of curious, like why can't we like hit the dome or anything like that?
It's funny that Admiral Byrd went to the so-called South Pole, took a huge military group with him, including a lot of planes, and was supposed to be there for months. Came back after like a few weeks, and with a lot of planes missing, and the Encyclopedia Americana edition, basically entry for Antarctica for the year after he came back, says that there's a dome at 13,000 feet. It's not me. It says it in the encyclopedia.
Well, I mean, I know about Admiral Byrd, but I mean, he also thinks that the Earth is hollow, does he not?
I'm sure he does. That's up to him, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, how do you feel about that? Do you think that the Earth is hollow?
I don't know. I've not been there.
Steve's actually have somebody that he knows that was on the South Pole. Don't you,
I literally have had somebody call me standing on the South Pole with a Iridium satellite sat phone.
It's on YouTube. You can check it out.
Okay. And did he show you the like a compass spinning around wildly?
Why would it spin around wildly?
Because everywhere is north.
That doesn't mean it would spin.
Well, no. I mean, if everywhere was, I mean, the compass should be pointing just back towards the center, quote unquote, center of the Earth. It wouldn't be spinning everywhere. That seems like a local magnetic.
Okay, so why did he show you that?
Huh?
Why would he need?
You're the one that said.
How do you know he's there? I'm just saying. I'm just trying to
because I got the phone call from an Iridium satellite, and he was in an expedition to the South Pole with other people. That was actually tracked.
I'm trying to break down whether he was at the South Pole or at the ceremonial South Pole, which is a barbershop pole set up somewhere.
He was at the ceremonial, not the magnetic. He was at the barbershop.
Barbershop pole.
There's more than one because it's moved.
Go ahead, John.
Well, hold on. Okay, so going back to the flight tracking over the southern hemisphere, or the outer ring, as I guess we're using it for this particular thing. So I did a little bit of Googling while people were arguing, and here's a guy, Cameron Beck, who's had 50 years of flight experience with aircraft and hang gliders. He says that's because the flight tracking sites such as FlightAware and Flight Radar 24 are displaying radar data via ADS-B receivers over vast expanses of ocean, North and South Atlantic and Pacific. There are no radar sites and thus no way to track the flights. And then, of course, it says GPS, of course, works by reception only. The GPS receiver on the plane receives the signal from the GPS satellites and calculates its position for the for display to the pilot. So there's no way to actually use GPS to track the flight as it's flying over the ocean. So I would say that particular evidence for you is a little debunked.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So you've just Googled something, just some guy saying this stuff. Okay. Most of these flight tracking systems say they are using GPS data. Okay. So you're
go ahead.
And you want to do the same thing. So they're saying they're using GPS data. Now you've just said, I've just Googled somebody who says otherwise. So you're saying that you're debunking it by the say-so of somebody who just says, they're not doing what they're saying they're doing something else.
Okay,
and you're calling that debunked.
Well, no. So one thing is explanatory power. With me being a software engineer and actually specifically working on mission planning software where GPS coordinates are very important, I would say that there's no way to hack into the GPS receiver of an airplane in order to get the raw data from it. The airplane would have to receive the information first and then transmit it to some other authority in order to relay that to whatever website that you're using. So you cannot actually get the GPS coordinates of a single plane without the plane telling you what those coordinates are. So if you can tell me exactly how somebody, the best hacker on earth, I guess, can hack into the freely floating GPS signal that the plane is receiving and get that information over water where there are no cell towers or any kind of radio towers or anything like that, if you can tell me that hacker's name, I would love to know that person.
Well, again, I don't know very much, detail about plane transponders, but they do have a
GPS
transponder.
and transponder are two different things. He's telling you the GPS is receive only. You don't transmit on GPS. So in other words, to get the information, you have to go through a different subsystem to transmit it. Right, G? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Because and he's right, because GPS does not transmit. It's one way. Is Dave frozen or he's just stunned?
Again, I started talking.
Your picture's stunned.
I thought we were going to wait until we finish before jumping in and interrupting. But
let's do that.
Sorry, you froze up. We couldn't hear you.
Yeah, your avatar completely froze.
Yeah, your camera froze up. But let's we're starting over now. So go ahead, Dave, respond to that, and everybody take turns.
As I said, I don't know the details of the transponder. The transponder sends data out. Okay, sends data out, including its, the flight, the aircraft number, and certain telemetric data. What I don't know if that part of that telemetric data is GPS coordinates.
Well, I would say that it probably does contain the GPS coordinates. Of course, I don't know the specifics about the black box recording or anything like that.
So there's no point in talking about it because neither of us know.
No, there is a point. There is a point because you're saying that GPS doesn't work over the southern hemisphere waters when in actuality it does. I mean, unless you have evidence to say that the planes still don't receive a GPS signal. Unless you have evidence of that, then, there's no reason to suggest that they don't receive a GPS signal because we know how GPS satellites work.
Right. So show me the evidence that planes are receiving GPS signals and they're transmitting them. But for some reason, all the flight tracking systems are ignoring it.
Well, okay. They're not ignoring it. They're only working with the information that they're given. And the only information that they're given is what's transmitted from the plane. And the plane has to be able to talk to a transmission tower, a cell tower, a radio tower of some kind. And over those particular expanses of water, there just simply aren't any out there. So you're asking me to give you evidence that can't exist in order to show you that you're wrong.
I thought we had telecommunication satellites that allowed you to pick up signals from various places on Earth. That's odd, isn't it? Yeah.
You still need to be able to connect. Do you think that cell phones connect directly to the satellites?
No, I don't think so because there are no satellites.
Okay. Well, no, I'm just saying because, cell phones or any kind of telecommunication requires a tower nearby to relay the information to other towers and then up to the satellites, if that's the route that you were going to go.
Why are we talking about cell phones now, though?
Well, you brought them up.
No, I didn't sort of bring cell phones up. You just sort of.
I don't think we're going to agree on telecommunication here. So let's go to something that we can we can kind of just none of us here are we work on the cell towers or whatever, and we can get into something that we kind of are more familiar with. You know what I mean? Instead of none of us are cell tower repairmen.
Well, if you give me 20 seconds, I can tell Dave exactly how to see a satellite because I've done it numerous times, and I have some background in that at least. If you take a telescope and go out any night of the week and point it to M42, which is Orion Nebula, and use about a 600 millimeter or a 600 focal length 4-inch with about a 20 millimeter ocular, you just adjust your eyes and wait, and you'll see these little things of light go right across your field of view. Those are satellites. Right,
and I said earlier on that as I drew up the Earth, in to scale, and showed the sun on one side, half the Earth and lit up, half the Earth in shadow. I drew the two lines that corresponded to 99 miles and to 1,200 miles, extended out the shadow, and showed that when you are on the nighttime side of the Earth, there is no way that you're going to see a satellite that is in that band called low Earth orbit, passing from one horizon to the next. Doesn't happen. You can't see it because satellites do not have lights on them, and they are passing in the Earth's shadow.
I just wonder what they would be seeing then.
I don't know, but they're not satellites.
John, maybe you can go there because he brought up an interesting point. Where he said the sun side of the Earth and the moon side. Maybe we can go into how it can be light in Australia and dark in our country and how that works.
Okay, yeah. How do you think that the sun and the moon work in the sky? Do you think that they are in the atmosphere or in the dome, or how do you think that works?
They're within the dome.
Okay. How do you explain our atmosphere and just not literally setting on fire?
I don't. Why would I? I mean,
you have this ball of plasma there because we know what the sun is made of. We do this with observations of the sun. We know that it's highly compacted hydrogen that is being burned up there, and it's plasma. So you have this extremely hot source of light that's within our atmosphere, and I'm just wondering why it doesn't actually burn up our atmosphere. Can you explain that?
Can you explain to me how you know that it's a huge fireball of hydrogen, exploding? How do you personally know? Tell me.
Okay. First of all, it's not a fireball. It's a ball of plasma. And because of how hot it's burning.
How do you personally know?
Because we can make observations of the sun, and we can look at it on various light spectrums, and we can know how hot it is by that. And we also know how stars are formed by looking out into the universe and seeing them form in other places.
I am saying, how do you personally know? Because you're just going by, something that people have said. Yeah. How do you personally know? Tell me.
It's not because somebody has personally said it. It's because this is what our scientific research has given us, and it has a lot of explanatory power behind it. So just the same reason why I use the Quora website with the guy that had been, a pilot for 50 years and whatnot, he gives me this explanation, and the explanation actually makes sense with how things work. The same way with science and what science tells us. And it's not just one person that has personally told me this. This is the preponderance of scientific evidence made through observations that of us looking out to the sun to know how hot it is, to know what it's made of, to know how it operates. We can detect different types of radiation that come out of the sun and are hitting the magnetic field of the earth. We can detect all of these things, and we know what the sun is made of. We know how long the sun is going to last. It's good for about another 15 billion years.
5 billion.
Or sorry, okay, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, what's a billion or two between?
Yeah, a couple billion here and there.
So, tell me, how does something 93 million miles away, cause light to come down at angles through broken cloud?
Reflection, and refraction.
Reflection of what?
I said reflection or reflection.
Is it refraction? Yeah, is that refraction?
Well, yeah. I mean, like off the moon, sunlight is reflected and shines down, and I would suspect the exact same process right there: reflection and or refraction. The atmosphere, the reason why the sky is blue is because of Rayleigh scattering in the sky. That's why it's blue, and that's why it goes orange and everything at night, because of the shifting light spectrum in which it's scattering.
But are you asking about crepuscular rays? Is that what you're asking for, Dave? Parallel light.
Yeah. Okay, we'll call them that. Yeah.
That's what they're called.
Parallel light coming down, coming through broken cloud or anything, but broken cloud. Yeah. And coming down at angles.
They're not. They're parallel.
Okay, they're parallel. Absolutely, are they?
Yes.
So why are we seeing them coming down at angles?
Perspective. If you have
right.
the sun is an infinite light source, and the rays leaving the sun are coming at us perfectly parallel.
Okay, so perspective works along the field of our vision. Yes, it's like if it's
called subtended. Yes.
Well, let me finish. As for if we're looking at a line of telegraph poles, yeah, we see them go down at angles. Yes, but across our vision, yeah, perspective doesn't work across our vision.
What would you expect light to come down at? If you're looking at parallel light coming through broken clouds, what would you expect it to look like if the sun was an infinite distance away? And I mean that is an infinite light source, not that it actually is an infinite distance. There's a distinct difference there. But an infinite light source is something that to be treated as if it's at infinity for photography. So if the sun is an infinite light source, what would you expect to see if that was the case? What would the light look like?
I would expect to see the light coming down parallel, as as we're told it's supposed to. So if you're saying that light is parallel as it reaches the Earth, how does it cause the moon to cast a shadow 70 miles wide?
Well, first of all, you can actually measure it and see that it is parallel. If you actually do the measurements, the lines are exactly parallel.
Okay, no, that's not what I asked. I'm saying, assuming you're right.
The moon is between the sun and the Earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you have parallel lines that are hitting the moon. So the moon is going to have what's called an umbra and a preumbra, and that's going to be the dark areas that it's going to be. Because it's blocking the light.
Yes, it's blocking the light, but the light is parallel, so it would cast a shadow exactly the same size as the object casting the shadow.
No, it wouldn't. It depends how far away the object is.
Yes,
the more distant object is a smaller shadow
93 million miles away.
Closer.
Dave, you cannot create a shadow smaller than the object casting it. The only way you can do that is a very large and diffuse light source very close to the object.
When you're talking about
not what we're talking about.
When you're talking about the light that's coming in broken, as you said, what is your explanation for what that is?
My explanation is that the sun is small and close.
How close?
Could be hundreds to thousands of miles, probably thousands of miles.
And what would you say that it's made out of?
I'm saying it's I don't know. I've not been there, but my guess would be a focus of light.
A focus of light? What does that mean?
Light focused at a particular point.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay. So what? But I mean, still, you have to have a light source for that focused light.
Yeah, but I don't know beyond. I don't know what's beyond the dome or whatever.
So
I'm just saying.
Let me get
that's my best guess.
Let me get this straight. You don't know how it works. You don't know what it's made of. You don't know a lot of things about it, but yet you know enough to say that it's not true that the sun is 93 million miles away and made of hydrogen in a plasma state.
Let me get this straight. Yeah, you don't know anything. You are just going by what somebody else has told you.
Well, no, I'm not going by what somebody else has told me. I mean, these are scientific findings that they have. They have a preponderance of evidence for it. It's reasonable for me to believe this because of the preponderance of evidence. But whereas you don't have any.
The evidence is that your evidence is somebody, a scientist with a theory. That everyone accepts as fact. Yeah, Einstein proposed some theories that turn out to be utter bullshit. Really, I said I've asked a question to physicists left, right, and centre, and nobody will answer me. It goes to proof of what Einstein says, but nobody can answer this question.
Which question is that?
Yeah.
Okay. How come LIGO discovered gravitational waves? because LIGO detecting gravitational waves actually disproves Einstein.
Well, Einstein predicted gravitational waves. General
Yes,
relativity predicted gravitational waves. That's why they were looking for them in the first place.
Yep, but so
how did this prove him? If the theory predicted them and they found them, how does that falsify the theory?
Okay, the method that they use to detect these gravity waves disproves Einstein.
How?
Yeah, how?
Okay. LIGO is a facility that has two arms 90 degrees from each other. Yeah, 15 miles long each arm. Okay, they fire a laser into a splitter that splits the beam and goes up both legs or both arms, reflects off a mirror back into where the beam gets recombined and then projected onto a screen. Okay, if a gravitational wave goes along one leg and not the other, so it goes longitudinally along one leg and across the other leg, then that leg gets shortened, gets compressed, and so the beam will take a different time to get back, and when they're recombined, it will form a interference pattern on the screen. Okay.
Yeah, it's a big interferometer, is what it is. Yes.
Right. Yes. Right. Well, the problem is that that gravitational waves don't move in space; they move in space-time. So when time is compressed, time or space is compressed, time slows down, so that the speed of light remains the same. So LIGO could never, ever detect gravity waves because, Einstein's theory says that the speed of light remains the same. If space is compressed, time slows down.
Okay, there were so many just things wrong with that. I don't even know where to begin.
Tell me.
I feel like Mark Hamill right now in the latest Star Wars movie.
I haven't seen it yet. No spoilers. No spoilers, John. I haven't seen the Star Wars yet. Do you? I mean, obviously, this is your discussion. Do you want to go into this? First of all, and it's not the kilometer you're off on. I think it's only about 3 miles, give or take, on the LIGO. But you're conflating special relativity and general relativity, first of all, and second of all, it wasn't just LIGO. There was actually 2 facilities that had the interferometers, and they actually measured the time distance between the gravitational waves hitting one area and hitting the other, and they had modeled what the waveform would look like prior to the observation, so they knew what they were looking for. So when they found the waveform of the 2 massive black holes that had emerged, it was exactly almost picture perfect of the waveform that they were expecting. So it's a validation of prediction.
You're doing a lot of talking, but you haven't actually answered the question.
Well, the question is rather nonsensical because, again, the way the interferometer works is if you have a gravitational, and first of all, the whole moving through space is nonsensical. The gravitational wave moves through space-time. Space-time is an intricate unit to itself. It's called Minkowski space. Okay, so Minkowski space is a 4-dimensional representation of what's called a manifold. So general relativity states that something can go faster than speed of light if it is space-time that's moving, right? But the gravitational wave is literally traveling in the space-time continuum, correct? That's basically what it is. It's basically mass that's been converted into gravitational energy. That's how the black holes merged. They lost about 3 solar masses of mass, and that was all directly related to be directly converted into gravitational energy, correct?
Okay, but you still haven't answered any questions.
I'm not sure what you're looking for, because LIGO was not only did they predict it and discovered it, you're saying now that it couldn't have, and yet I have no idea why you think that it couldn't have. You didn't explain why it couldn't have.
I just did.
Yeah. Special relativity.
Gravitational waves move through space-time. Yeah, it's not
I said,
space. Yeah, the LIGO is based on space contracting. Yeah, space contracting and light taking a shorter period of time moving across. But It's space-time we're dealing with. Einstein's talking about space-time. And if space contracts, time slows down, speed of light remains the same. Speed of light is constant. That's the core of Einstein's relativity. Now,
no. I mean, he didn't. Einstein didn't say that the speed of light is constant. I mean, we've been able to change the speed of light. Yeah. Like, for instance, with prisms, the reason why prisms will refract and split out into the different wavelengths of light is because the light moves at a different speed within the prism and causes it to separate.
Right. And
isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? Because sorry, I was got there before you. Isn't that funny? Because when we were in a debate with these PhD students, I take it you're not a PhD student in physics. Either of you, yeah.
Well, I have a slight background in physics.
The PhD.
I'm sure you do, though.
No, the PhD students said that it wasn't that light was slowing down; it was light actually striking, being absorbed and reabsorbed and re-emitted through the prism.
That was technically that's true. What he's okay. First of all, when you're talking to people like
don't try and blind us with bullshit.
No, I'm going to explain to you what he meant by that because I can explain it to you. When physicists talk to the layperson, they often have to explain things down to a very base level, right? Base level, said it. Okay, so that was for Chloe, by the way. I mean, sorry, Casey, not Chloe. For Casey. Casey, that was for you. So look at what happens is the reason why light slows down is because it is being absorbed and re-emitted in atomic structures, okay? But there are particular situations, like he mentioned, in a prism or in water where light slows down. Matter of fact, you can have what's called Cherenkov radiation, which is radiation from particles moving faster than the speed of light in the medium. And you get this nice little blue glow. So when he's saying that the speed of light is constant, it's only for constant in the speed of light in a vacuum. That constant does not change, but the speed of light can change. There's a difference there.
Speed of light, right, or the light can curve as well. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Right, so right, so funnily enough, the phenomenon of time dilation, in the presence of a high gravity field, which is the same as acceleration, in Einstein's model, right, is one of the factors supposedly in the GPS satellites, because time moves. I can't remember which way around. Time moves faster because it's away from or slower because it's away from the faster because it's away from the gravitational field. Yes. So this you're arguing against Einstein.
You're conflating two different things, David. You're conflating GE with special. Yeah, you just talked about time dilation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, time dilation is not GR. Time dilation is special relativity. It's called Lorentz contraction. Have you heard of that term, Lorentz contraction or
yes,
Lorentz time dilation? Okay, that's special relativity.
Okay, so what you're saying is it switches off, right? Because it's a different theory. It switches off, when it's convenient.
I don't know how you got that out of what I just said, but that's okay.
Let's go to something different. I talked about wanting to find out what the secret is, the bigger lie underneath all of this that you discovered. Let's go into that a little bit.
Well, the bigger lie has to be human history as it relates to the old. There's a huge cover-up about what's been going on in human history, who people are, and what's really going on in this world, because it all goes back.
Can you give us an example?
Yeah, go into detail about that. What do you mean by that?
Okay. One of the things that's hidden is the true identity of the Israelites in the Bible. And really what's happened to them, because we're told that the Jewish people in Israel right now are the children of Jacob, but they're not. They turn out to be Khazars and Ashkenazis who are actually not blood relations to Jacob. They're not. They have no right to that land by blood. Yeah, they're more European Khazars.
Okay.
Yeah, I know nothing about this, so I'm not going to.
I mean, I have no idea about this particular area.
Yeah.
But can you pick a different topic that isn't so based on anthropology and stuff?
I asked that because I thought it had to do with the flat Earth. I thought that you may have uncovered some kind of connection. We can't obviously speak to that because we don't know anything about that. So
yeah, the only reason it came out of the flat Earth is because there are many Bible verses that tell you that the Bible cosmology was a flat Earth cosmology. So that's what led me into actually finally sitting down and actually reading the Bible for the first time.
Okay.
I mean, you said earlier that your belief in the flat Earth or your beliefs in general weren't rooted in religion, but every time we get back to it, it seems to stem from the Bible.
It stems to a book that was written thousands of years ago that just happens to hold answers that we're discovering right now.
Or they didn't know how to actually do the experiments to determine the shape of the Earth.
Yeah. What answers? What answers is this book giving us at all? Like, do you believe in a literal creation?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay. That's where all this stems from.
So you're a creationist that doesn't adhere to religion.
I'm not an ist or an ism at all. Yeah, I look at this book, and it tells me a lot of things that hold true today.
Go ahead, John.
Okay. So, I mean, do you believe in the literal creation as it's put out in Genesis?
I don't believe the interpretation that Christians put on it. Okay.
What could you enlighten us about what interpretation you have of Genesis?
Okay. It tells me that before the period covered by the Bible, there were other civilizations that are not spoken of because they were utterly destroyed. Goes through I get that by looking at the Paleo-Hebrew words, translating the words into Paleo-Hebrew, and it basically plainly tells you that there was a previous civilization that was utterly destroyed. I believe when you. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're saying that there is a previous civilization that was completely destroyed and then humans came about?
No, it's
okay.
Saying that there were humans who created cities, and they were utterly destroyed, and there was another creation, starting again almost from scratch.
Okay, so there were two creations. Now this isn't the flood that we're talking about.
No, there may have been multiple creations, but for all I know, it talks about there was a civilization before. I'll go through why I say that, because when you translate I think the second line of the Bible, and where it says, "And the earth was without form and void," when you actually look at it, through the Paleo-Hebrew, it says, "But the earth had become ruinous and empty." Okay.
Wow.
The other place that you find the words ruinous and empty, the words tohu vobohu, are in Jeremiah, where it says that the Most High's furious anger destroyed everything, and everything had become ruinous and empty.
Are you a fan of Graham Hancock?
Not a fan, no, but I know of his work.
It sounds familiar to that what you're describing. I didn't know if you were. That's where you're getting your.
He does say something about the pyramids being sort of more than 10,000 years old. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, John.
So, all right, what exactly are you translating to Paleo-Hebrew? Like, which version of the Bible?
I start with the King James 1611.
Okay.
Use the various concordances to translate into the fake Hebrew, the Yiddish, and then you apply the rules of Paleo Hebrew to actually get the expanded meanings of the words.
Okay, what has indicated to you that is what you need to do in order to get the real words? Because, I mean, we have manuscripts or fragments of, the earliest writings, and they're not, I don't think they're in Paleo Hebrew. If they were, then you just use those instead of having to translate through multiple different translations of it.
It's amazing how. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. From my research, I believe that the Paleo Hebrew was the original language of mankind, and because you can actually see how all the other languages spread out from that language, but this language is a dead language. Yeah, it's an intentionally killed language, so nobody speaks it anymore. But once you start studying, you can actually cobble together the rules behind this language, and from those rules, you can apply them to the fake Hebrew and get more meaning.
So you think the current Hebrew is fake Hebrew, but there's a real Hebrew that exists prior to that called Paleo Hebrew, in which we have just tried to cobble together some kind of rule set. Did an actual linguist come up with this, or was it just something in the Flat Earth groups?
Your faith in society is your downfall. No, it's one thing that's really funny about all this is that how you as a debunker, you seem to be expert in everything, or you have this faith in these so-called experts. Yeah.
Well, I think it's been painfully obvious that I'm not an expert in every single thing in this hangout alone. I didn't know all the specifics about LIGO or even what you were talking about with the sun rays being parallel. I'm just lucky that Steve was able to pick up on what you were putting down there.
And you notice I shut up when you start talking about the Bible because I know G is going to kill me in that area, right? I mean, we understand we all have our little things we do better at. That's why none of us think that we know everything. I know when to shut the fuck up and divert, to somebody that knows far about there's more topics like the Bible than I do, which G blows me away on that. So I don't know why you would think that he has this, thing that he's an expert in everything. None of us think that way for ourselves or other people.
That's been my experience when dealing with people. I'll say anything and all of a sudden they're experts at it. Yeah.
To be fair, though, it's been my experience that flat earthers are experienced in advanced physics, in geology, in all of these areas that they are not experienced in, but yet they are perfect experts of.
I'm not an expert in anything. Okay. But I have senses. I have the scientific method, which the science community never uses these days. Yeah. I have bloody common sense. Yeah.
Oh, it's hilarious to hear somebody say that the scientific community doesn't use a scientific method these days. That's just ridiculous to say.
They don't. Yeah. Science is a exercise in maintaining the status quo.
Why the LIGO? Of all the things that they could use to cover something up, why cover up the shape of the Earth? What's the end game there? What's the goal of that? What does that get anybody? Who cares if the Earth is? I mean, if we were looking at it as its bare minimum, it wouldn't affect anybody's life if you were on a flat Earth or a ball Earth. Why cover that up? You know what I mean? Of all the things that you could get away with covering up, why do an Earth or the shape of the Earth?
It affects all our lives because if you know that this is a created place, yeah, that there is a creator and you are one step down from the creator, then nobody can come along and say, hey, I'm your boss. I'm telling you what to do now. Yeah. But by taking away the creator, taking away our importance in this world, taking away our purpose, making us these tiny little microbes that arrived here by accident on this speck of dust, moving through an infinite, impersonal, accidental universe. That makes us nothing. That makes us unimportant and can be controlled.
But how do you get from?
Right, okay.
But how do you get that if the Earth was flat, how would you get from that to it's been created? Let's just say that the Earth happens to be flat. I'll grant you that. How does that get you to it was created?
Because there's no scenario that you can come up with that a domed system like this flat Earth that could come into existence by accident. Yeah,
so we go to God instantly. I mean, that seems like
aliens.
Yeah, it seems like you could put anything there.
Then who created the aliens?
Oh, but that's a different question. I mean, you're saying the Earth.
No, you just brought up aliens.
God, but the aliens could be some kind of godlike race that can do that.
So who created the aliens?
I still don't see how you can get if the Earth was flat. How you could get from that to that means there's a God. Like, why couldn't by some different means of cosmic conception a flat Earth be produced? Why does it have to instantly go to God?
Oh, tell me what that is then.
I don't know, because the Earth's not flat, so I can't make that. I can't bring
sorry,
that
you don't know. I mean, it must mean you're wrong.
Hold on. One thing I want to ask is, why is it that the Bible, however many times you want to translate it into made up languages, how is that the authority on on the reality of the universe? Like, I don't understand why that the Bible, translated however, is the authority and trumps all the scientific understanding that we have now.
I'm telling you that that science is an exercise in trying to make the world a physical, ordinary, natural world rather than a supernatural world, which it is, because anything that doesn't fit in the natural, physical, natural conception is considered an anomaly, and ignore it. It's an anomaly. Forget it. Yeah. But you'll find that most of this world is supernatural.
No, most of the world is supernatural. Like, I don't even understand that. Like, all science does is it tries to seek out the truth of reality. Science can give us the truth of reality. Like, for instance, we know that the Earth is 4.54 billion years old because we've been able to test meteorites that have struck the Earth that were formed around the time that the Earth was formed, and we've been able to do different radioactive tests, radioactive dating tests on them to determine how long that they were there. So I mean, that is totally contradictory to what the Bible says. And
do you know that there have been people who've actually tested, so-called fossils and actually, bones of penguins that died like a few weeks ago, and dated them at thousands of years old. This you're going by
David. Do you understand those? I have to, Dave. Those penguins, any kind of aquatic thing that lives off like things like mollusks that have certain types of shells, they have what's called a reservoir effect. It's a very common thing in radiometric journals. This is why this is where they came from. This is why they say you cannot radiocarbon date certain aquatic things because of the fact the concentration of carbon-14 is different in the ocean than from atmospheric sources. So they say don't use it for that. It's one thing that it cannot be used for. So it's not that the carbon dating is wrong. It's being used inappropriately in a situation it is not able to be used. It doesn't mean that it's not effective when it's used properly. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Because
you're not a dinosaur
with
denier,
DNA. Some people go off and get like 3 or 4 DNA tests and find that they are from all sorts of different places. Yeah, we're given this model of science that we have to automatically believe because the experts are saying it. Yeah. and they come up with nice packaged answers. Yeah.
No.
During our
These are from journals,
our debate with the physicists, I caught these physicists talking about, or waxing lyrically about Newton and how wonderful Newton was and stuff. But the plain fact was that Newton's theories were wrong. He wrote.
Wait. Which theory?
Let him finish and then respond. Let's keep it. I would say let him finish his thought and then you can respond to him. So we don't get mixed up.
Newton wrote the Principia Mathematica, and as a huge tome, he created a whole new way of calculus, to support his theory of gravity being, two masses mutually attracting each other. Now, that's. Funny enough that this theory basically predicted certain results, mathematically, that equated to some sort of events on Earth, but it didn't actually work for planetary scales. Didn't work, right? So let me finish. Didn't work for planetary scales. So that's why Einstein had to come along. And he came up with a completely different theory of gravity, not based on mutually attractive forces, but a curvature of space-time in the presence of a gravitational field. So in the presence of a mass, not mysterious forces. So his theory matched reality more than Newton's.
Okay.
So, which means that everything that Newton wrote was bullshit.
That's so wrong.
Right?
No, that's
so wrong.
wrong. Okay, listen. Newton having an incomplete picture of how things work is completely different than being completely wrong. Newton's basic laws of motion still hold on every perceivable level that we have here on Earth. Newton's calculations and everything hold tight, but it's when you get into the more planetary things that we had to develop a better picture, and that's what Einstein did. It's not that Newton was completely wrong or was bullshit or anything like that. The first law of motion still holds. The second law of motion still holds. Calculus it still holds. We still teach calculus, and calculus wasn't just a new form of calculus that he did. Newton came up with calculus in order to explain shit. He developed calculus.
So did Leibniz. Leibniz actually, I think, has a better version of calculus. But I think what G was trying to tell you, Dave.
David, I stopped you, or stopped them from interrupting you. Do the same for them, so that we can keep respect.
The law of gravity holds. The law of gravity is legit. It works for its intended thing. Just like the problem you had with the radiometric dating, you're taking something and applying it to somewhere it's not applicable. Newtonian physics works for Newtonian situations. For non-Newtonian, you have relativity. So you can't say relativity falsified Newtonian physics, because Newtonian physics works very well for Newtonian physics. That means non-relativistic speeds and not factoring in gravitational gradients. So if you're doing simple calculations, believe me, Newton works. Kinematics is a legit thing. You don't have to factor in relativity when doing simple Newtonian physics.
Well,
motion. The laws of motion are not gravity. Yes.
Who said they were?
Let me finish. The laws of motion are not gravity. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, y'all, this is Casey. I have a request from the chat and basically everybody. How about we talk about urine advocacy?
I saw the chat.
Because we are not getting anywhere with science. Obviously, science is just not a thing that's going to happen here. So how about we talk about urine advocacy, because everybody's interested.
Fair enough.
Okay, great.
I'm good with that.
Fair enough.
Thanks.
Yep. What do you want to know?
Time.
Well, I know nothing about this.
So you drink
subject,
piss,
so it's gonna be all you, I think.
Yes, I do. I'm proud of it.
This is just coffee. Well, a little brandy, but
why?
Okay. I'm not really sure how to approach this topic, because I am clueless and in the dark. So I'm gonna let you explain what it is and why, and I guess we'll kind of go from there based on what it is and why.
Okay. Well, urine therapy is the process of drinking your own urine and washing in it as well. The misconception that most people have is that urine is a waste product that the body is trying to get rid of because it's waste, but that's not true. Okay. And yeah, you can do your face palm all you like. Yeah. But, you don't know everything. That's the point. Yeah. If you actually, just opened your mind a little bit and actually studied a little, you might find that there's something more than you're aware of. Okay. The point is that urine is not waste. First of all, it comes out sterile. Yeah. Sterile actually means it's not waste. Yeah.
No.
Okay. All right. It's not waste because what happens is your blood goes to your liver. Your liver screens out all the things that shouldn't be in the blood, all the pathogens and viruses and anything that shouldn't be there. Your liver gets rid of. The purified blood goes to your kidneys, and your kidneys are there to keep your blood in balance. So if you've got too much water in your blood, yeah, your kidneys will screen out the excess water. Same with vitamins. If you've got too much vitamins, yeah, the excess will be screened out, because having too much of anything is just as bad as having not enough. So we all know if you have too much vitamin C, you'll end up weeing it out. Yeah, it's because your body can only deal with so much. It only needs so much in the bloodstream. So what happens is the excess, all the excess of the things, the good things in the blood, end up being stored in the bladder. Well, there's a clue right there, because the body does not store waste. Yeah, it stores urine in the bladder so that it can reabsorb that stuff that it needs. Yeah, because.
So there's a reabsorption mechanism in the bladder?
Yes, there is.
Do you have the? Can I see the pathway for that? I'm just curious.
Well, what happens? Here's an experience that most people have had. That you're dying to go to the loo. And like you get distracted, and an hour later you realize you don't need to go anymore, because while you were distracted, your body's been reabsorbing some of that urine and now taking the pressure off the bladder. But the point is that once that storage facility is full, the body has no option but to dump it overboard. That's the only reason it goes.
So how do you get from that to using it as a homeopathic?
Well, hold on. You said that the body.
I'm so curious.
I mean, you said that the body doesn't store waste, but I'm fairly certain that my ass has a lot of shit in it.
Yeah, but there is. I'm very sure of that as well. There is no facility to hold waste. Yeah, it will come out, but there's nothing there to store it.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't walk around with shit coming out of my ass all day. Like, I mean, it stores it, like it keeps it up there for a bit. I mean, we have a sphincter for a reason.
Yeah, what's happening is that, the food that you ate is being broken down so that it can pass through and out of you. You're like a big tube that goes from your mouth to your bottom hole. It's just one tube. It's not a storage facility.
So why is there?
You can say
I'm ready
asshole.
to have
That's
this
fine.
conversation. I don't
Well,
think
I'm
I'm
curious.
ready.
So why is there an expulsion mechanism if it's not meant to be expelled? And by the way, do you know the formation of the anus and the mouth over biological history for why we're called a deuterosome? Why we have a single pathway that goes from the mouth to the anus? You can actually track it back biologically to different species all the way back billions of years. But there's a reasons why we have the ability to expel waste product. Because why do we have that ability if it's not waste?
Okay, you're mixing up two entirely different processes. Yeah, as I said, urine is not waste. Right, the composition of urine is not waste. If you actually study what's in the urine, it's only the beneficial substances in the bloodstream. Yeah, the medical term for urine is plasma ultrafiltrate, ultra-filtered blood plasma. That's what it is.
No, it is literally not that.
Go and look it up.
So there's no uric acid. There's no
Indeed.
Any kind of calcification or calcium deposits.
no
Bacteria.
No bacteria.
I don't think it's completely sterile. I think that's actually it's somewhat sterile, but I don't think it's completely sterile. But
it's
well,
not.
that depends on
completely
if you
sterile. You have bacteria in your urinary tract.
Right.
And actually, when you get a UTI, it's because you get an uncontrolled bacteria growth in your urinary tract. But I mean, when you pee,
right.
It is mostly water. I mean, I'll give you that. But the other bit of it are things that your body does not need. And if you actually keep ingesting that, you could suffer some of the similar symptoms as kidney failure.
It's funny because I've been doing it. Sorry.
I was just going to say that's kind of to do with my question. If it's mostly water, right? Why not just use
water.
Urine water? Like why the
have some sparklers?
What's the benefit for urine therapy? Like what is it aimed to do? What does it do? Why not use just regular water?
It pretty much does everything. Okay, it literally has it's like a holographic map of what's going on in your body. Yeah, if you have an infection, it's already got the antibodies in there for the infection. If you've got an allergy, it's got the what do you call it? Oh, I can't remember the word now. But it's literally got the antidote for that.
Antibiotics or antiviral? I don't know.
Well, urine is
antigens?
That as well. Okay, I helped somebody who had gangrene. Okay, he was sent home to die basically because he didn't want to have cut his leg off. Okay. His leg looked horrible. It was mostly black and there was a huge open wound in it. I told him to literally pour urine into the wound and then cover it with a urine-soaked dressing. And literally over the course of a month, that wound, all the black flesh fell off. It was nice and pink and fresh underneath. That wound closed up. And all he had was a small mark.
I don't know if I can speak for NonSequitur, but we do not advocate for you pissing on gangrenous wounds.
Yeah, not a good idea, probably.
Well, jellyfish stings, yes, absolutely, but not gangrene. Jellyfish, yes,
that's your choice.
Gangrene.
Yeah, that's because you have ammonia.
Actually, the jellyfish thing is wrong. It actually hinders the process with the jellyfish.
Well, I must have been under some.
Really?
We'll go into that story later.
I'll just say, I had a friend who disagreed with and didn't believe anything I said about urine, and one night somebody tipped a fire pit all over his leg and gave him like 3rd-degree burns basically, and a nurse that was there slathered his leg with aloe vera gel, and that just seemed to make it worse. So they called for me. I weed in a glass and I started pouring the urine on his leg. Right. Immediately he screamed because there was a sharp pain, but then after a minute or so, right, the pain disappeared. Right. I kept pouring it on his leg, and he said, "I can't feel the pain anymore at all."
Wait. They called for you? Do you have a medical license?
What? No, it's not.
Why would they call for you if you don't have a medical license?
Because they know I talk about urine therapy.
Why don't all facilities and like hospitals use that as a form of treatment? If this was truly something that worked on this kind of scale, why wouldn't they adopt that? Like, why wouldn't
because you're not ready for that information.
There's no hospital in the world that's going to call somebody who doesn't have a medical license.
I'm not asking him. I'm not saying for them to call him. I'm saying why aren't they using? If he's correct that urine does these things, why aren't hospitals using that as a form of treatment? Like if it worked on burn wounds, like you say it does, why wouldn't a hospital use that as a form of treatment if it works?
Because hospitals are not about healing people.
Oh.
David.
Well, that's interesting.
Let me tell you.
People died. You know, they
let
lose
me tell
customers. It's not a good thing. Not a good business model. Let your patients die. So they had a better way to do it.
In 1900, yeah, there were all sorts of different types of medicine. Yeah, there was allopathic, you know, chiropractic, you know, homeopathic, all these different types of medicine. Okay, if you were ill with anything, you'd go to the right kind of practitioner to deal with your problem. Okay, one of those forms, as I said, was allopathic. That was to only deal with the symptoms of the problem, not the problem itself, not the cause of the problem. Okay, so you'd go to an allopath if you got knocked down by a bus. Yeah, the allopath will deal with the symptoms, that is the bleeding, the broken bones, blah, blah, blah. Right? It wouldn't deal with the cause, which would be the bus. Okay. Now, the Rockefeller and Carnegie families basically funded the allopaths. Okay. They created medical schools for allopathic medicine. They created their insurance companies only would deal with allopathic medicine. They made, training facilities for allopathic medicine and drove all the other types of medicine underground into a lunatic fringe. So right now we're stuck with a medical system that only deals with symptoms, masking and stopping symptoms, not dealing with the actual cause of the problem. Right? That is a crazy way to try and deal with something. It's like when the engine warning light in your car comes on, you go to the mechanic and he takes the bulb out. Yeah, the symptom's gone, but the problem's still there, and it will get worse and worse until some catastrophic thing happens. And they'll say, "Oh, it's not anything to do with that first thing."
Can I step in here because
Please.
I have a. Okay, so.
Please.
There is somebody that we know in the chat, and so she has a son, and when he was a baby, he had vasoureteral reflux, and he had no bladder valves. Okay, so his urine backed up into his kidneys, and he almost died. The urine had bacteria that overran his kidneys, and he was on IV antibiotics for almost 2 weeks. Okay, so if they had waited to get treatment for him, he would have died. So,
or if they would have just peed on him, he would have also died. Just to point that out.
If she would have given him pee to drink, he would have died. So can you explain why something like that happened if urine is sterile, and if urine has all these healing properties, why would it nearly kill someone?
Okay, the body not working properly will kill you. Yeah, I don't know the case, and I don't know
the urine.
But I mean, you peed on a guy's leg and it healed him, so
you didn't stand over there and pee on him, right? You had a cup or something, I assume,
I had
right?
a cup. Yeah.
I don't know. I would have drained it from the tap.
It's fresher, I guess, if that way.
Right. Well, as I said, I've been using this for nearly 8 years now, and non-stop, and including a 30-day urine fast where I just drank urine, nothing else. Right. And I'm in the absolute best shape of my entire life. Yeah. I've helped my mother with it, where she's 75. She was in a wheelchair for 10 years. She had a crumbling back for 50 years. So she's been in pain for 50 years. And a year and a half into urine therapy, her back repaired itself. She was out of the wheelchair, off all the drugs she was on, and she looks like she's in her 40s now.
Dave, did you do a fast for 2 months where you didn't eat or drink anything?
I did a breatharian experiment.
So for 2 months, you did not drink or eat anything.
No, what happened was I for the first 10 days, I didn't drink or eat anything, but because I'd prepared not to eat for a whole year, I didn't prepare not to drink. So I got dehydrated. So I changed experiment to, I was just drinking distilled water.
Okay, but did you eat food for 2 months?
No.
And you had no weight loss?
I literally did lose weight, but the weird thing was that over the course of 4 days, my weight dropped from 77 kilograms down to 71.4 in 4 days. And I thought, well, that looks a bit dangerous. So I'll stop the experiment if I hit 70. But the next day, my weight went back up, and it continued up till it hit 75, and it stayed there.
So you were about 170, and you went down to about 155.
Maybe you can answer. Steve, maybe you can answer this. How do you produce urine to drink for 2 months if you're not taking in any type of fluid extra?
Well, he said he was drinking distilled water.
Well, yeah, I was drinking distilled water.
Okay,
the 30 days.
But to go 2 months without food and only lose about 15 pounds, not biologically possible. Not in this reality.
All right. Well, but
it's just a biological.
That's your reality. Fine. Before I did the breatharian experiment, I'd done a 30-day urine fast where I literally lost. I was nearly 300 pounds, 285 pounds when I started, and I lost most of that. I went in 7 belt notches in 30 days. So I was basically near enough at my natural weight, which turns out to be around about 75 kilograms.
Okay, so 75. Okay. One second. You went from 75 to 71. Is that what you said, though?
No, I went from 77 to 71.4.
Okay, so that's about 15 pounds, give or take.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
It's 170 to 160, 155 or something like that. I
have so many questions, John.
Well, okay. So the point of Shannon's question earlier was that, her son's urine backed up into the kidneys, and there was a lot of bacteria and a lot of toxins in there. But I mean, if the urine can be reabsorbed into the body and only contains the good stuff, then why did that seriously affect him?
It sounds like that. I don't know, because it sounds like that the body wasn't working properly. So who knows what was actually going on with the urine? Was it the purified blood getting there? I don't know. I don't know what the situation is.
You're saying
I would have to know a bit more about the situation and the case to have a theory about it.
Okay, but I mean, you understand how. I mean, if what you say is true about the body reabsorbing pee and the pee only being good things
from the bladder,
are you saying that the pee was not the reason why her son was sick, and that it was instead something else that was wr't I mean, I feel like House MD here.
Again, I don't know enough about the situation, so I can't intelligently talk about it.
Well, I mean, it seems very convenient that at every turn, whenever we get to a position where you're challenged on something, it turns out I don't know enough about this.
Well, I'm not going to lie to you.
You know enough to say these people are wrong about what they're saying, but you don't know enough to explain your position.
Again, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you if I know something, I'll tell you. If I don't know something, I'll tell you that as well. What can I say?
Well, I mean, you could say that all of your explanations are anecdotal and don't actually have any kind of basis with evidence.
Okay.
Do you happen to know a flat earther
like 900? Sorry.
Do you happen to know a flat earther that is well versed in physics or science that maybe can advocate from a flat earther position using actual physics and science? Because we would love something like that. I've asked for years. If you could find me especially a PhD in math or physics or any kind of sciences that advocates for a flat earth position that can use math and physics and science, we would be thrilled to death. I will probably drink pee on camera if you can arrange that, probably.
You haven't proved anything so far, sir. Yeah,
I wasn't trying to prove anything. I'm asking you if you know somebody with those qualifications.
No, I don't. But
we don't either. That's the problem.
If you did, then you wouldn't really have much of a leg to stand on either.
Well, it'd be nice to have an actual flat earther that can use physics to try to promote their case, because as John points out, and I don't mean any disrespect, you seem like a really nice guy. You clearly don't have a background in science. You clearly have no background in physics.
I've no background in theoretical physics.
Okay,
I have a background in applied.
Okay, so you studied kinematics, you've studied atomic physics, or electricity? What kind of applied have you studied?
I was an electronic engineer. I was a software engineer.
Okay.
Where I wrote 3D graphics engines and 3D and 2D graphics engines, and
Cool stuff.
and I also wrote Google Maps 4 years before Google did.
Okay, so I'm trying to think how to phrase this. If you have a background in electronics, then you probably some have an understanding of physics. Did you not take kinematic courses?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Kinematic courses.
Kinematics.
Okay.
Are you
No, I
with the
didn't.
term? Okay. Are you familiar with the term kinematics? Kinematics just means motion, things relating to motion, ballistics.
Right,
things of
but
that nature.
it also means, in 3D graphics terms, it means, human motion. But, well, there you go.
Yeah. There's human kinematics, sure.
Right. Well, the point is, right, you guys are really good at trying to find, contrived situations that I don't know, don't really prove any point, but trying to negate any point your opponent.
No. I look at. All I'm asking for is somebody that can actually converse on a higher level dealing with physics and science. That's all. I mean,
and I'm trying to say
that can show us the math. Like, say, here's flat Earth, here's the math. We would love that. John would love that, I'm sure. Would you not, John?
I mean, I would. I mean, because every single situation I've come across, it's people know enough to be like, oh, science is wrong, but yet they don't know enough to be able to explain their position.
Right, but the point is that we've discussed a few things that don't really have any math or physics involved in it, right? And you basically ended up quiet and moved on to another subject, yeah.
Well, the entire flat Earth debate had physics and everything all over it. I mean, it's like we peed on it with physics.
Yeah, very funny. We didn't touch on the gyroscope, for instance. Do
you know how a gyroscope works? Do you know the physics behind it? I mean, could you describe using physics how a gyroscope works?
Right. Okay. Not in the terms of the jargon, but you tell me, what does rigidity in space mean?
Rigidity in space, as far as like a Lorentz contraction, if you have something.
No. I'm talking in terms of a gyroscope. What is rigidity in space?
Fixed with respect to the plane of orientation.
Right. So what is precession?
Precession is due to the fact that it has angular momentum, that the axis is going to be slightly off from its initial point, so it's going to precess around a certain point. For like the Earth is yes, that's exactly what it is. Earth is tilted at a 23.5 degree angle. That axis that goes along that, the star that above it, called Polaris, precesses because the Earth has a slight wobble in its rotation, and it is going to have that star actually be in a different location thousands of years from now. That's called precession.
Well, that just shows you haven't studied what a gyroscope does. Yeah, precession.
How is that not right? John, is that it? I mean, it's pretty basic, but is that not incorrect, John? Or is that not correct? Precession?
No, you were correct there, Steve. I mean,
I don't know.
Really? So that's what you're saying?
It's basically just the law of conservation of angular momentum. Yeah.
So, right, you're saying that it's a wobble. Well, actually, you're describing the symptom, not the actual cause, which is precession. Is when you with a gyroscope, if you apply a force to that gyroscope, no, the actual effect of that force will be seen 90 degrees away from it. That is precession. If a force is applied to a gyroscope, yeah, if the gyroscope is pointing this way, yeah, and I apply a force this way, yeah, the gyroscope will actually move that way. Yeah, that's precession. Right, you're describing something else.
I don't know what the hell you just said, to be honest. I have a physicist that I
look it up. Right, look it up.
Wait. We have a physicist that I respect a lot. He's actually an electrical engineer, and he has a background in science excessively. And he just said I was correct, and I don't think he's even understanding what you're saying. So maybe you can try to word it in a way where where somebody who actually understands science and physics can understand what you're saying, because I don't. If you
apply a force to a spinning gyroscope, the effect of that force will be seen 90 degrees away from the force.
So you're saying it's orthogonal.
I'm saying that when you apply a force here, it actually moves this way, 90 degrees away from the force. Yeah, use whatever jargon you like. This is what I'm trying to tell you.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know, but in normal terms, in terms that everyone can understand, you apply a force here, the effect is seen there. Yeah, that's precession. Okay, so a gyroscope is fixed in space. It's rigid in space. It has no reference to
the plane of orientation.
Yes, to its own plane of orientation. Has no reference to the Earth, has no reference to the center of the Earth. It has no reference to gravity. Okay.
This is the definition of precession. Let me give it to you. The slow movement of an axis of a spinning body around another axis due to torque, which is a rotational force, such as gravitational influences acting to change the direction of the first axis. It is seen as circle slowly traced out by the pole of a spinning gyroscope. Exactly as I said with the pole, it's traced out. The Polaris is going to change position because of precession.
So why does
the orientation of a rotating body due to an outside force on it?
So why does it do that?
Conservation of angular momentum.
Right. As I said, if you actually Googled, the precession of a gyroscope, you'd get a different and a more detailed explanation rather than one.
You just said before you don't know how a gyroscope works, and now you're trying to explain to people how a gyroscope works, though.
No, for crying out loud! You're the one who just bloody Googled it, so you're not one to.
I just Googled the definition. I know what precession is. I described it.
The point I'm trying to make, is that a gyroscope, right, is rigid in space, no reference to the Earth, no reference to gravity, no reference to the center of the Earth, right? When a gyroscope is spun up on the artificial horizon on a plane, it is spun up before the plane takes off, so it gets a reference to the ground. And as the plane goes over the curve of the Earth, the gyroscope stays rigid in space. So the artificial horizon should appear to roll backwards, but it doesn't.
No. I mean, you're totally negating the locality of gravity and the space that you move around with how big the spherical Earth is. Of course, the gyroscope isn't going to move like that because, I mean, it's got a locality to it. That's why we don't go over the curve of the Earth, because at every single point on the Earth, we're on the curve. Every single point on the Earth is a curve.
I know, but the plane follows the curve, apparently. Yeah, if in straight and level flight, it would follow the curve of the Earth. The gyroscope stays upright because it's rigid in space. Okay, and so if a plane was flying 4,000 miles, it would, 60 degrees. I think that would cover, right? So the artificial horizon should roll back 60 degrees, but it doesn't. It stays straight and level.
All right. Well, I mean, I haven't done a lot of research onto gyroscopes and what the fuck, dude? I haven't done a lot of research on gyroscopes as they fly, but what I do know is that every point on the spherical Earth is on the curve, and so
this is your friendly producer, David Fulton. I have something to add to this little conversation about gyroscopes and planes here.
Okay.
There's an air-based system, because when a gyroscope can also be turned into a fan, right? We can put vanes inside there that cause it to blow air at the same time it's spinning, right? And that air can open veins in the side that compensate. It can actually be made to compensate for that roll you're talking about. They're called pendulous vanes. You need to look those up, Mr. David.
I do know about pendulous vanes.
Have you seen Wolfie 6020's videos? Because you need to look at those videos.
I've seen those as well.
He's done plenty of videos that tear those gyroscopes apart, that go into the into the dashboards of planes and show how that all works.
Yeah, and
Sassy producer.
Wolfie's a pilot, correct?
Yes, Wolfie is a pilot.
So he has a lot of expertise in that particular topic.
Yes.
Really? I've spoken to many pilots. Every time I fly, I take the opportunity to talk to each pilot, and I get different answers from each one of them.
What are the answers? What are some of the answers that you get?
That it naturally compensates to the to the Earth. Sometimes they say that it's got complex electronics that knows where it is on the Earth and compensates.
Well, there are different systems, but when you're talking about the gyroscope, the mechanical ones, that's how they do it.
The mechanical ones,
yes.
Right? The pendulous vanes. Yeah, they say that it's gravity that allows a vein, a pendulous vein. If the gyroscope is tipped over this way, then the vein opens and applies a force. Yeah. Well, then remember that a force applied here will act this way. Okay.
Right, it's much like a rocket because the vein on the other side isn't opening, so it blows it back. Yeah. Okay.
So then how does it work when the plane goes upside down? Because all the pendulous veins.
Because the entire assembly rotates about the other axis.
You also realize that
it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
It does.
Right.
Go look it up.
It literally doesn't work.
He literally shows you it does. So I don't know why you're arguing the point.
And the artificial horizon has been, the mechanical one has been a fixture in planes since almost the time that planes began. Yeah. They didn't have all
They worked all that out at that point in time. So,
right, okay.
I really, if you don't think it works, then you need to rewatch Wolfie's videos and think again.
Well, let's ask him real quick. Do you agree that the Earth does have a precession? Do you agree that Polaris is a precession? If that's the case, how would a flat Earth model show that? Because we can show it on a round Earth. It works. How does it work on a flat Earth? I'm just kind of curious.
Well, I don't understand this idea of precession, because we have massive monuments that are aligned to stars, and have not moved for thousands of years.
No, that is incorrect. That is incorrect because
right, okay.
And it has no relevancy to precession.
But
right.
And
so
you can
the
track
Georgia Guidance
Orion's
Stones.
belt was aligned to the pyramids back when they were built. It is not in that constellation now.
Things have changed. The stars, the celestial sphere has changed over thousands of years.
And that can be easily checked. You can line them up.
Yeah.
Now
it was 10,500 BC, I think, when they lined up.
And the pole star hasn't moved.
Yeah, the pole star has moved.
Okay. All right. Yeah. All right.
So hypothetically, let's say hypothetically though, if the pole star has moved, for the sake of argument, how would a flat Earth model account for that?
Well, I'm saying it hasn't moved. For the whole of recorded history, it's been in one spot.
Okay, grant you that the pole star hasn't moved. What about the southern pole star? What about the southern? What about the southern celestial pole at all? How could you have two celestial poles on a flat Earth at all? How does that work?
I don't know. I mean, I don't have all the answers. So
that's your model, though.
Just because I say I don't know doesn't mean right. I've got you. Yeah, you don't know. So it can't. The scientific model, right? The globe model doesn't have the answers anyway. Either it doesn't have all the answers either. Yeah. It's making up a load of stuff. Right?
Sure it does. Look. We got two poles because we're on a globe, and when we look north, we're looking up at we're looking north at the pole. When we look south, we're looking at the other pole. You can see them both from the equator. So there's your answer.
Okay. Look. But the pole stars have changed.
Yeah.
I mean, over time. I mean, it wasn't always Polaris up there that was the North Star or whatnot. It's changed over time because of our orientation in space. And the I guess the precession that we've been talking about here, I mean, it's changed over time. Magnetic north, I mean, even changes. I mean, it's currently creeping. I can't remember which way, but I mean, it changes. I mean, stuff changes all the time, and we'll see a new pole star, like a new North Pole star, like in the next few thousand years. I mean,
you will.
I mean, it takes a long time, but I mean, it happens.
And
You
this-
will.
and
You
the
say-
South
Hopefully.
Pole, the
I
South
plan to
Pole,
live forever.
They call it Sigma Octantis, but Sigma Octantis is a little bit off the southern pole. But for the most part, they call it the southern pole star. But what Dave said, you kind of glossed over. You cannot see both of those stars in the hemisphere at the same time.
Well, he just said you can.
From the north. From the northern hemisphere or from the southern hemisphere. Now, from the equator is a little bit different, on because Sigma Octantis is off the actual polar pole. That's why, because it's not actually at the southern pole. That's the only reason. It's a few degrees off. But if it was actually on the actual South Pole, celestial South Pole, you would not be able to see it. So how is it that I can go out right now at night, and I can tell you exactly where Polaris is? It's everything that's near it is circumpolar. It never dips below the horizon. I can point to it exactly where it's at every night. It doesn't change. I can never see Sigma Octantis. Why is that?
Again, I don't know. If I lived in the so-called southern hemisphere, I'd probably have a better idea, but I've never been there.
But you know enough to say that it's what we're saying is bullshit.
Well, apparently you know enough to say that what I'm saying is bullshit. You don't know.
Well, yeah, because we have
you been there?
science to
Have
prove
you been there?
wrong.
Have you been there?
I could use a model called Stellarium to show that what you're saying is wrong. Stellarium
Okay.
is based on a round Earth
Nice.
model.
Is that
sort of makes predictions?
yeah.
Yes.
But you know, have you been there? Sorry, I mean,
I have been here using my program to show the flat Earth model doesn't work. You can show on a program called Stellarium that the round Earth model will make predictions. If I ask it, and I mean metaphorically ask it, what there's going to be a lunar eclipse at what specific date, what time, and what location, it can tell me. There's no flat Earth model that can make that kind of predictions. None.
Can we not take observations now with how we know the universe operates and extrapolate like backwards, or extrapolate from a different location or anything like that? Like, or do you physically have to be somewhere to witness it in order to know that it's true or whatnot? Because like one of the big things in science is that we can infer things that have happened or that will happen or that will be in other places. Like, you know, we can infer, how are the environment on like Titan or on Mars without actually being there.
And my question would be, were you there when God made people? Because if we're going to where people have to be there for it to happen, then that would fall flat. No pun intended.
right. Well, I'm saying that you can mathematically construct this huge construct that has no basis in reality. But
But it
the
predicts,
maths
right?
works.
But it can predict. You do
The
agree.
maths
It predicts,
works. Well, yes.
Okay.
I could come up with the
wait, one
banana
second.
theory.
If it predicts and it explains, I'm a scientific instrumentalist. I don't care if it actually is reality or not. I'll tell you right now, it makes no difference to a scientific instrumentalist. Scientific realist would say the model has to be exactly the way the reality is. To me, I just care if it explains and predicts. So if it explains and predicts, you're literally just saying that the round Earth model does that.
I could come up with a banana theory, based on the shape of a banana.
Go
That
for it.
if I
Ray
spent
Comfort
10
beat
years,
you. I'm sorry. Ray Comfort. I'm sorry. Ray Comfort beat
Okay.
you.
Yeah, if you, I tell you what, you do software, and you said you program. If you could develop a software program that can make predictions for eclipses based upon a shape of the banana, go for it, and we'll check it out.
Well, it's not beyond the realms of possibility because the shape of a banana is governed by the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio. So you can, using
What would that even have to do?
Let me interject real quick. David, we're going to give you the last word, but we're way over the 2 hour the 2 hour mark. I mean, it was a very quick 2 hours, but we do try to keep the shows 2 hours or less. So I'm will curve the conversation now, and we're going to give you the last word to kind of wrap up your thoughts, and tell everybody about your channel again, where they can find more information, your website, put all that out there so people can check you out, and then I have something that I want to say after you, and then we'll close out. But yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, this revival of the flat Earth comes out of questioning all these models that we're given as so-called fact. That's it. And the point is, as soon as you question them, you find flaws, especially if you spend time looking at the so-called evidence, the so-called physical evidence of this round, so-called round Earth. When you look for physical evidence, you can't find any. Yeah, all you'll find is calculations and theories. So yeah, that's my standpoint on this. You can find my website is allegedlydave.com, and my YouTube channel is dmurphy25.
Just curious, real quick, why allegedly, Dave? Are you not like?
Yeah,
are you?
That comes from my Freeman days, when you realise that part of the deception is in the name, and being. So a lot of people used to call themselves commonly known as, and somebody called me allegedly Dave, and that stuck.
And last question before we turn it over to Godless Engineer to close out, have you ever used the phrase, "Am I being detained"?
Yes, I have. Several times.
He had it on video, I think. Didn't he? I watched one video. I think he said that. Okay. And you don't want to create joined it with somebody, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Godless Engineer, give us your final thoughts, and then let everybody know about your channel, where they can find you, if you have anything coming up, that sort of thing. And then I have something that I need to read to everyone before we close out, and then that'll be it.
Okay. Well, I appreciate everybody joining tonight. Obviously, I don't know every single thing, to give to a flat earther. It requires a lot of different fields. And, I obviously haven't studied all of them, but, I try to do my best. So for all of the critics in the comments, I'm trying to do better. What I feel like we got out of tonight was just more of the same, of inexperience fooling somebody into thinking that they have perfect experience, into at least enough experience to disregard all of the scientific evidence to the contrary. And that particular subject, I don't understand. I don't understand how you can know enough to disprove a certain scientific theory or something like that, but not have enough knowledge or experience or anything like that in order to present the alternative theory that explains why you think it. And I feel like that is at the heart of any of these kind of debates and whatnot. So, is that a Nikon P900?
Yeah, and just going out and trying to find curvature. This tells you that no.
Okay.
No curvature.
Just let
you can find me.
Real quick, there's an entry in the P900 and the Great Debate Community Wiki. So if you want to learn more about the magical powers of the Great Flurfer P900, go to the Great Debate Community Wiki. We have a whole article just on the P900. So if you're interested,
I'll connect you, David.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. Actually, it's well written.
And you can find me on YouTube at Godless Engineer. You can also find me on Twitter, Godless Engineer, and Godless Engineering on Facebook. So if you want to connect with me there and enlighten me about how much I fucked up on certain portions of tonight, please do.
Well, the entire point of this conversation, I think, was to kind of go through each other's thinking and get a better understanding of where we're at. It wasn't a science heavy thing anyway, so lighten up on him, guys.
Are we going to drink pee now for some kind of camaraderie?
That, because
have a toast to David.
Because we went there.
Hang on, I'll go to some right now.
Because we went there while you were all talking about the PP thing. I wrote sort of a send off in I don't know what you would call you'll understand, but this is all in jest, David, all in jest. We would like to thank all of you for tuning in tonight. I think that this was a golden opportunity for us to get our ideas out. David, I hope that you're not pissed. It was all in friendly exchange of ideas. If you want the show to go back towards our religious roots mostly, then you're in luck, because tomorrow we'll be back at 8 o'clock with another debate. And if you haven't seen the new channel trailer yet, it leaked 3 nights ago. Enjoy. Bye, everybody. Thank you, David. Thank you, Godless Engineer, for joining us. It was a very interesting talk. I learned a lot. I didn't expect us to go into quite the anatomy of people walking around with shit. But it was great. It was great. I loved it. So
yeah, you can't say this was a shit show. It was a piss show, but it wasn't.
Love it. Okay. Tomorrow at 8 o'clock we'll be here. Thank you, gentlemen, both again for joining us, and we will see you tomorrow.